I've just watched the announcement for the Women's Prize for Fiction longlist. Look, let's face it, there are 15 books that are going to be completely overshadowed by a 16th book creating what is just going to be a controversial issue. And that's not great for books. We're living in a time when the most powerful politician in the world is talking down to countries that are getting invaded and, talking over people and just being a despicable bully. We're living in a time where multiple countries have cost of living and housing affordability issues. We're living in a time where global warming is having a noticeable effect on the seasons. We're living in a time when nothing seems quite right. And I think it's very short-sighted of the Women's Prize to pick a book by an author that is so political and so divisive and is going to create an argument. It's definitely going to take away from the books. It's going to make a minority of people feel not included in the prize. It is posturing with a certain group of people that the Women's Prize has had issues with in the past. The history of the Women's Prize does certainly mean that you would hope that they would not have long-listed authors that are outspoken on certain issues, that they would try and stay out of it. And I mean, sure, some people say, keep it about the books. But the thing is, it's never going to be about the books. It's not going to be about the books now. We're going to discuss this issue. Everybody is going to discuss this issue. It's really bad form for the other 15 authors. This is not going to promote books. This is going to promote hate. And that's really ignorant or hateful. I can only think that it's ignorant. I can only think that the judges of the Women's Prize have not considered the impact that this will have on that community that is the most charitable. I know lots of people love the author I'm talking about's writing. I'm not going to name them. I don't want to give them publicity. I'm sure you can look them up if you really want to know. It's not that hard. I'm sure you actually know who I'm talking about. I'm sure their book is incredible. I'm sure it's very well crafted. It's taken them a long time to write it. I'm sure all of those things. But I read Ingrid Persaud's The Lost Love Songs of Boise Singh. That's a bloody brilliant book too, and it's missing from the long list. I'm sure Natasha Brown's Universality is a brilliant book. I haven't read that because it's not out yet, but it's not on the long list. There are great books missing from this long list. Every long list misses great books. The purpose of a book prize is to promote books. This is siding with an issue that I'm not sure I want to read the Women's Prize this year. I'm really, really disappointed. No disrespect to anybody who wants to read the Women's Prize or anything like that. Read what you want to read. I always say, if you want to read a book, read a book. Doesn't matter. But just personally, I just think that is so ignorant, so stupid, and they would have had months to consider this. And here I am. I've spoken about the issue and not the books. And it's either stupid or it's disgusting. Trans identities are valid. My trans viewers out there, you're welcome. And I'm not going to have an argument about this, the trans issue on this channel. I'm just going to delete comments that are I'm just going to delete comments that are gender critical, turfy, whatever you want to call it. This is a safe place for trans people, and apparently the fastest growing book prize in the world is not. I'm going to sleep on this. And decide what I want to do about the Women's Prize tomorrow, but just really disappointed. I can't leave it there. I can't deride the prize for doing something that I think is going to take away publicity from the books, from the hard-working authors, and then not mention the books and the authors myself. That would be pretty hypocritical and cutting off my nose to spite my face. So let's talk about the books, shall we? I'm going to start with Amma because I just think it has a stunning cover, and it's by a Sri Lankan Kiwi author, and I don't know why, but that makes me happy, and I feel like I need things that make me happy in my life more than I need things that don't. 3 generations, 3 continents, 3 sexualities. 1951 Singapore, 10-year-old Josephine kills her abuser. Awesome, I'm in for this one. The trauma becomes a defining moment in the lives of Josephina, her daughter Theresa, and her granddaughter Annie. The effects cascade through generations as Annie sets out across the world to discover what happened to her fractured family. Set in Sri Lanka, Singapore, New Zealand, Australia, and London, Amma is a novel about family displacement, secrets, and how the past lives with us forever. That sounds good. Somewhere else, this has been like low-key on my radar, but I sort of gave up finding a copy at my library because it was a bit too underground, so I guess it's going to be at my library now. Rosa Roskin is 5 years old when her family are murdered in a pogrom, and she is forced to leave behind everything she knows with only a suitcase of clothes and her father's violin. Somewhere Else is the epic generational novel about womanhood and Judeo-Scottish experience across 2 world wars, the creation of Israel and the fall of the Berlin Wall, a novel which explores today's most difficult and urgent questions, not least of which how to find identity in displacement. Yes, identity is an important issue. We should support identities. I'm not going to be able to turn off the cattiness, I'm sorry. I do think that sounds like a very good book, and Judeo-Scottish culture is something I know very little about. Good Girl by Aria Aber is a book that I have finished in the last few days. It's about an Afghan girl living in Germany, sort of kind of coming of age, not really. She's in a relationship, or she falls into a relationship with a much older man who is like a famous artist but is a bit washed up, and she does way too much drugs, like a lot too much drugs, like calm down. It's quite literary for like the girl versus the world sort of narrative that it is, but it's making some really powerful points about feminism, society, racism, homophobia, all of the big issues around identity and stuff. Probably about 4-star for me. Good, but not the best one. The Ministry of Time. In my prediction video, I discussed this one, saying I didn't think it would make it because it was getting very negative, very positive, very everything reviews, and I suspect that this is just going to be one of those books that people either love or they don't love or whatever. One of those divisive novels. And maybe in hindsight, and knowing that it's on the long list now, I can say, well, of course one of the judges liked it. It seems that everybody disagrees on this. Why wouldn't the judges panel have at least one person to push it forward? A time travel romance, a spy thriller, a workplace comedy, and an ingenious exploration of the nature of power and the potential for love to change it all. In the near future, a civil servant is offered the salary of her dreams and is shortly afterwards told what the project she'll be working on is. A recently established government ministry is gathering expats from across history to establish whether time travel is feasible for the body, but also for the fabric of space-time. She is tasked with working as a bridge, living with, assisting and monitoring the expat known as 1847, or Commander Graham Gore. As far as history is concerned, Commander Gore died on Sir John Falcon's doomed 1845 expedition to the Arctic, so he's a little disorientated to be living with an unmarried woman who regularly shows her calves, surrounded by outlandish concepts such as washing machines, Spotify, and the collapse of the British Empire. But with an appetite for discovery, a 7-day cigarette habit, and the support of a charming, chaotic cast of fellow expats, adjusts. He soon adjusts. Over the next year, what the bridge initially thought would be, at best, a horrific, uncomfortable roommate dynamic evolves into something much deeper. By the time the true shape of the ministry project comes to light, the bridge has fallen haphazardly, fervently in love, with consequences she never could have imagined. Forced to confront the choices that brought them together, the bridge must finally reckon with how and whether she believes what she does next can change the future. I can see from that description why that is some people's catnip and some people are grabbing a cross and branding the book with it. Honestly, that's the sort of book that if it's done well, and very few authors could do that well, that it would be amazing. But I guess we're going to have to read it and find out. Crooked Seeds by Karen Jennings. Karen Jennings was shortlisted or maybe longlisted for the Booker a few years back with The Island. I think she was longlisted. In her parched, crumbled corner of a Cape Town public housing complex, Deirdre Van Denver receives a call from the South African Police Department. Her family's home, recently reclaimed by the government, has become the scene of a criminal investigation. The remnants of several bodies have been unearthed from their land after decades underground. Detectives pepper her with, was your brother a member of a pro-apartheid group in the 1990s? Is it true that he was building bombs as part of a terrorist plot? Deirdre doesn't know the answers to most of these questions. All she knows is that she was denied repeatedly the life she felt she overshadowed by her brother. Then abandoned by her daughter, Deirdre has been left to watch over her aging mother, making to do with government help and the fading generosity of her neighbours. But as alarming evidence from the investigations continues to surface and detectives pressure her to share what she knows of her family's disturbing past, Deirdre must finally confront her own shattered memories so that something better might emerge from what remains. All Fours by Miranda July. I DNF'd this about 6 months ago, really quickly too. And so quickly that I was thinking if it got longlisted, I'd probably have to read it again just to, sometimes I just DNF things because I don't get the right feel and it's not really worth mentioning. It's almost like I probably shouldn't have picked this up. I probably should have spent a bit more time browsing with it before I decided I was going to read it. An irrelevant, sexy, tender, hilarious and surprising novel about a woman upending her life. A semi-famous artist announced her plan to drive cross-country from LA to New York 20 minutes after leaving her husband and child at home. She spontaneously exits the freeway, beds down in a nondescript hotel, and immerses herself in a temporary reinvention that turns out to be the start of an entirely different journey. Miranda July's second novel confirms the balance of her unique approach to fiction, with July's wiry voice, perfect comic timing, unabashed curiosity about human intimacy, and palpable delight in pushing boundaries. All Fours tells the story of one woman's quest for a new kind of freedom, part absurd entertainment, part tender reinvention of the sexual, romantic and domestic life of a 45-year-old female artist. That sounds divisive as fuck. The Dream Hotel by Layla Lalame. I have to be honest, when I made my predictions video, I very briefly considered this and thought, oh no, it's not eligible, it's been published too late. But then when I checked after I posted it, I was like, you missed it. I am really looking forward to reading this book because Layla Lalame is a quality author. And this one is released today, so you can get it now. See Booker Prize, you can still learn from this. Sarah has just landed at LAX, returning home from a conference abroad when agents from the Risk Assessment Administration pull her aside and inform her that she will soon commit a crime. Using data from her dreams, the RAA algorithm has determined that she is at immediate risk of harming the person she loves the most, her husband. For his safety, she must be kept under observation for 21 days. The agents transfer Sarah to a retention centre where she is held with other dreamers, all of them women trying to prove their innocence from different crimes, with every deviation from the strict to the ever-shifting rules of the facility. Their stay is extended. Months passed and Sarah seems no longer to realise. Then one day a new resident arrives, disrupting the order of the facility and leading Sarah on a collision course with the very companies that have deprived her of her freedom. I mean, that sounds like the sort of sci-fi that I actually really like reading. Sci-fi that mirrors things that are happening in society and asks those sort of questions of what will happen. You know, there's enough of what's happening now to people like asylum seekers in there, and enough of the way the future could go. And it's just a great philosophical question. If you know somebody's about to commit a crime, is it fair to arrest them when they haven't committed the crime yet? And by the way, the answer to that is yes. But what are the consequences to that? Is that, I mean, that's a really difficult question. So when I say that the answer is yes, it's not that simple. There needs to be checks and balances. I really love this idea. This sounds like a really good book, and from an author who has talent. The Persians. This is about a family who migrate from Iran to America, and as they hold on to their Persian identity, they have to ask themselves, what does that really mean in America? At the same time, they're all women, and we have this sort of power dynamic change as the younger generation become adults, and will not become adults, are adults, and there is a bailing out of jail. I've got to be honest, every time I see praise for this book, I'm like, I don't get how this can be good, but I keep seeing praise for it. I keep seeing it on book prize long lists. I keep seeing people love it. And something that I love a book doing is proving me wrong on something. Nesting by Roshan O'Donnell is an absolutely fantastic book. You should all read that. It is about a woman who makes like half snap decision, half long drawn out decision to leave her abusive partner. She's definitely been considering it for a long time, but she just makes the choice that she's doing it now, and if she doesn't do it now, it's not going to happen, sort of thing. He hasn't hit her, but he is definitely there's a lot of red flags anyway. I'll let you read it to discover those red flags for yourself. But I have a review of this on my channel. It's one of my shorts, and I just absolutely love this book. It is such a well-crafted feminist novel. And by the way, if you just want to be amazed by something, go to Roshan O'Doyle's website and have a look at all the authors that have praised this book. Elaine Feeney, Roddy Doyle. Having Roddy Doyle praise you this year is a particularly good sign, considering what prize he's judging later in the year. I would say this really is the book to beat. It's just one of those books that is of really high quality. It does what it says, and it does it well. It really explores that aspect of being manipulated by your lover and being gaslit, and it does it really well. And then on top of this, we have social welfare and the housing crisis in Ireland, and then you all know that Irish writers are just more talented than writers from other nationalities for reasons that doesn't make sense to me, but I'm happy to keep reading them. A Little Trickery is a book that I have just finished reading as well. I've finished 2 of these in the last week, so that's pretty impressive. It's got such a cool voice, this book. Honestly, even if you're not interested in the sound of this book, just pick up the first page and just read it, and read how she's constructing these sentences in this weird sing-song, back to front, cavalier way. It just works so well. It creates such a feel for this novel, the way it is written. The prose is weird and lovely and digestible. It's beautiful and accessible. It's wonderful writing. It is about a girl who, in the opening 2 scenes, has her mother die, and then her baby sister, who she's looking after, die. Of course, when the mum dies, you know that the baby sister is basically going to die because she's so young and not getting breast milk. She's living in the time of Henry VII, and so it's a historical fiction, and she meets a guy on a beach who looks after her, and this boy and this girl just form this beautiful friendship. It has this religious link to it, where at points they hate the church and at points they love the church, and ultimately it's making a lot of comments about how the church can be manipulated by the people in charge of it to do terrible things. But also, it's basically a bit of a caper. It's basically a bit of a fun, like Ocean's 11 style silliness. There's just that lovely prose to it. I think that that's a fantastic book. Maybe it's not quite serious enough to go all the way, but I think that a lot of people will appreciate this novel. Birding, I've got to be honest, that's a book I've not heard of before. In a small seaside town, autumn is edging into winter. Gulls ride winds over the waves, and two women pass each other on the promenade, as yet unaware of each other's existence. In the 90s, Lydia was a teen pop star, posing half naked on billboards everywhere with a lollipop between her lips and no idea how to live, letting the world happen to her. Now, 3 decades later, Lydia is less and less sure that what happened to her was in the least bit okay. The news cycle runs hot with Me Too stories, and a famous former lover has emerged with a self-serving apology, asking her to forgive him. Suddenly the past is full of trapdoors she is desperately trying not to fall through. Joyce is middle-aged, has never left home. She still lives with her mother Betty, with their matching dresses, identical hairdos and makeup. They are the local oddballs. Theirs is a life of unerring routine. The shops, biscuits serves on bone china plates, dressed up for a gin and tonic on Saturday. Nice things. One misstep from Joyce can ruin Betty's day, so Joyce treads carefully. She has never let herself think about a different kind of life, but recently, along with the hot flushes, something like anger is asserting itself, like a cage thing realizing it should probably try and escape. Amid the grey skies, amusement parks and beauty parlours of a gentrified rundown seaside resort, these two women might never meet, but as they both try to untangle the demanding details of their past in the hope of a better future, their lives are set on an unlikely collision course. I have no idea where that book's going. Interesting cover. It's quite a striking cover, actually. I quite like it. Weird. I'm going to go into that one with no expectations because really that could be anything. The artist, all Joseph wants is to be let into Tafel's world. All Eddie wants is to escape it. In the year 1920, the place is a remote farmhouse in Provence, home to the reclusive painter Edouard Tafel and his niece Etty. Into this strange silent house walks a young journalist hoping to write an article about Edward. But the more he entangles himself in this particular household, the more Joseph's curiosity grows. Etty cooks and cleans for her uncles. She prepares his studio, scrubs his paintbrush, and creates the perfect environment for him to work. She has never gone further than the local village. She is sharp-eyed and watchful, but beneath her cool exterior, Joseph senses something simmering. Sounds like the last book, doesn't it, with the mother-daughter? Eddie, Joseph and Edward circle each other throughout the hot, crackling summer until finally they collide. I do know that this one has got a lot of good critical reviews. A lot of people have put it on there, like a lot of journalists and professional book reviewers have put it on their books to look out for in 2025 lists and such. Tell Me Everything by Elizabeth Strout. Oh my god, could we please stop long listing this series? Oh, Elizabeth Strout is a very, very boring, descriptive writer. And yes, she says things quite nicely, but she doesn't. She just takes too long to do anything, and her characters are watery and weak, and I have no interest in this book. The Safe Keep by Yael van der Woden. I think we've all know about this book after the Booker Prize, so it's nice to give it another bump up. This is a book, I've said it a few times, it's best that you go into it not knowing anything. If you are European, you're probably going to understand things, but if you're a stupid Australian, you're probably not going to pick up on what's been hinted at. And the same probably goes for you people in the UC and the user and the Canada and all the other places that aren't Europe. Just a really well crafted story. delighted to see it on this long list. Fundamentally, a wickedly funny and audacious debut novel following an academic who flees from heartbreak and lands in Iraq with an insane job offer, only to be forced to do the work of confronting herself. When Dr. Nadia Amin, a long-suffering academic, publishes an article on the possibility of rehabilitating ISIS brides, the United Nations comes calling, offering an opportunity to lead a de-radicalization program from the ISIS-affiliated women held in Iraqi refugee camps. Looking for a way out of London after a painful and unexpected breakup, Nadia leaps at the chance. In Iraq, Nadia quickly realizes she is in over her head. Her direct reports are hostile and unenthused about taking orders from an obvious UN novice, and the murmurs of de-radicalization being inherently unethical and possibly illegal threaten to end Nadia's UN career before it even begins. Frustrated by her situation and the unrelenting heat, Nadia decides to visit the camp with her sullen team, composed by goody two-shoes Sherry, who never passes up an opportunity to remind Nadia of her objections, and Pierre, a snippety Frenchman who has no qualms about perpetually scrolling through Grindr. And this is a long description. At the camp, after a clumsy introduction section with the ISIS women, Nadia meets Sarah, one of the youngest refugees, whose accent immediately gives her away as a fellow East Londoner. Nadia feels inexplicably drawn to this rude girl in the Damonti headscarf. She leaves the camp determined to get Sarah home, but the system Nadia finds herself trapped in is a quagmire of inaction and corruption. One accomplishment barely makes a dent in Nadia's ultimate goal of freeing Sarah and the other women too, of course. And so Nadia makes an impossible decision leading to ramifications she could never have imagined. A triumph of dark humour fundamentally asks bold questions. Who can tell someone what to believe, and how do you save someone who doesn't want to be saved? That description is probably the longest I've ever read of a book description, but it does make me want to keep reading that book. Will it be good? I really don't know. It is curious though, and that is actually a sign of a really well-written summary. Is it the sign of a well-written book? I don't know. Somebody mentioned that book on their prediction video, and I don't know who it is off the top of my head, I'm sorry, but I was really interested in reading it when they mentioned it, and now that I see it on the long list, I am also interested in reading it. That is the 15 books that I will be discussing. Ultimately, this is a channel about promoting books, so I want to do that, but I'm never going to shy away from the politics of a situation. So it is important to call out shitfuckery when we see it, and maybe you don't agree that it's shitfuckery, but I just feel so bad for my trans and non-binary and genderqueer viewers, friends. I just, it's just such a horrible world. We need less of that. Can we just be nice to people? Can we just accept people for who they are? Be nice to people. And war sucks. Prejudice sucks. Everybody deserves a roof over their head and a full belly. Can we have those three values? And then can we concentrate on some really good books? It should be simple, right? Anyway, I hope you found a book on this long list you like, even amid the controversy. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.